Welcome, dear viewers. I would like to tell you about a case of misunderstandings, of violence and of injustice. I hope that when thinking back, you will think of this story as something worth watching, although this was created merely to be enjoyed in the first place. If even one of you understands or tries to understand the deeper meaning, that will fill my heart with joy. Let me be your tour guide in the world of organized crime, a narrator of a nature documentary starring the violent nature of humanity, with the concept of violence as a guest star of sorts. This story, although it is original, contains inspiration from other works, mostly No Country for Old Men. But instead of copying it, it tries looking at the themes of it from a completely different perspective, twisting its concept. I am telling this to you in order to avoid any accusations of unoriginality. I would like to warn you about this story. Although it contains hopeful parts, it also has a lot of tragedy happening in it. So if you are looking for a way to forget your sadness, I don't recommend it. Without further ado, let's begin. What you currently are seeing is the police station, in which the interrogation of a robber is currently happening. But he isn't the most interesting player of this merciless game with no winners. The next man to be interrogated is Father Joseph, the most moral one out of all our characters. Some of you may call him the hero of the story. And while he is without a doubt the only man you can call that in this tale, but seeing the world as a compilation of battles between good and evil is just a more poetic way of misunderstanding it. Actually, it may sound disappointing at first, but life is merely a never-ending series of events that we are unable to understand or control. All we can do is react to them and see if we can outsmart fate, the one and only way of truly knowing a person is by analyzing the nature of his reactions, or to be more precise, the intentions behind those, since we can't control the outcome either. Father Joseph is one of the few people whose reactions were made putting others in the first place, even if this means him not getting rewarded, regardless of what he deserves. However, if I can give you a bit of a spoiler, that doesn't necessarily guarantee a happy ending. The man who is interrogated currently is the assassin, one of this tale's three main characters. MadOut2 there are more than 3 people, but only Father Joseph, the assassin we just talked about, and the mob boss of their presence constantly felt through the whole story. But wait, 3 important figures, and one of them is named Father. Where have I heard this before? Let me think. Of course, the Holy Trinity from the Bible. However, based on the dark world of this story, the Unholy Trinity would be a more fitting name for them. But let's return to the assassin. He is an interesting player of this game of good and evil, of crime and law. He currently is on the bad side, but not because he believes in their cause, or agrees with their idea of success and power, but simply because they appreciate his unique skills out of all sides, whether that makes him superior to them, because he doesn't believe in their cause, or worse, because he doesn't have any morals or values besides him winning, is up to debate. He, of course, believes in the first version. Unlike his colleagues, he has a debate about this question in his head more than you would expect an average criminal to do. He justifies his doings by assuming that on the other side of the law, everyone would treat his efforts ungratefully. MadOut2 this is certainly not the case, but it is true that he would have to work more there, and us, humans, MadOut2 are great at making up grandiose plans and ideas, but are far worse at putting effort into their execution. The robber starts our story by mentioning that he has heard about the boss of the local mafia delivering a briefcase full of dirty money to their secret base. He wanted the money, so he stopped the man and attacked him. When he was winning, he was about to open the luggage rack. However, the mob boss did it for him and ran away with the briefcase. The robber followed him in at the desert, and MadOut2, his enemy, wanted to ambush him. but he was quicker and knocked him unconscious. He checked the briefcase but realized it was empty. So he fell for the plan of the mob boss to entice him from the actual money. He returned and saw another robber trying to shoot the luggage rack in order to open it. He was successful and grabbed the briefcase. The first robber attacked him and they had an argument. The second robber also knew of the mob boss traveling in the desert. Because in the underworld, much like in the real world, there are no secrets. Meanwhile, the mob boss woke up. One of the robbers is talking about the race he had with his companion, in which the stake was the bag full of money, the chance for a better life, the physical manifestation of the American dream. He won, but there wasn't any price. How ironic that in his whole life, he was constantly rewarded with things he didn't earn. And the only time he won fair and square, he was left with nothing. The price being taken away was the kickstarter of a chain reaction, bringing nothing but more violence and pain to the world, which was already filled with those. And like in many other cases, everything would have been better if they weren't blinded by their pride and could actually settle the case of whom the bag actually belongs to without a need for competition. When they noticed the bag missing, they, like expected, blamed on the other one and started fighting with their bare hands, which lasted for hours. What love can do to the human body is often praised, however. The lengths it is willing to go when hatred is in control is pretty underrated. Even when they stopped, it was caused by an outside force, a police car arresting them. Back to the interrogation, the robber asked the policeman how did he notice them. His answer is that he was patrolling and heard a weird noise. He thought it's not a big deal, so he didn't even turn on the sirens while checking. Father Joseph says that he was just wandering around with his car when he saw a random car on the street. We can all agree on the fact that this is certainly not an ordinary occurrence, so it was natural that he checked it. But curiosity is such an interesting pillar of the human psyche. It is behind many of the achievements that completely turned the world on its head. But also, like in this case, behind many tragedies, where the curious man brings countless innocents into suffering. He found a briefcase full of money, which he picked up. And although it can be someone's first guess, it was not for selfish reasons, but rather for the search for justice and the truth. To be more specific, to take it to the police so that they can give it back to whom it originally belonged. The assassin starts the story with the mob boss visiting him. He wanted to retrieve his money but didn't want to do the dirty job, which is ironic considering his job is one of the dirtiest. So he hired him and told him that he could use the tracking device hidden in the briefcase to find its location. It is very interesting that they both made a choice that brought them into the criminal world. And although both choices were influenced by their hatred for normal society, it was for very different reasons. The mob boss had always been disgusted by being an average citizen. For him, it only meant fake relationships, the elimination of everything unique, and leaving no impact on the world. But the world he hated has made many attempts to seduce him in his childhood. The adults were always talking about what an upstanding citizen he could become. The assassin, on the other hand, was always obsessed with a great career, wealth, and, most importantly, making people jealous by showing these to them. Unfortunately, he was always told that he wasn't good enough until one day it was enough for him, and his love of success didn't disappear. It was too large for that. Instead, it became hatred. It wasn't success that he hated, but rather society's idea of it. But they both had gotten stuck so deep inside his hatred that they didn't notice getting into a system based on the same values but with a different name for them. By the way, sorry for the possible grammatical mistakes in the narration. The assassin is talking about his mission of cathing Father Joseph. Not for his mistakes, nor for his sins, but merely for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. A man hearing stories like this might be wondering, what even is the point of being ethic? If we are all just expendable background characters in the action. Movies starring people with power and wealth unimaginable to the average citizen. But even though the assassin is the cat in his cat and mouse game with Father Joseph, but the mouse in a gang war, and his cat is about to catch him, he too will pay. But at least for the crimes he actually committed. But unlike Father Joseph, the average, or at least seemingly average everyman pulled into the vicious world of crime, the assassin is trained. But the power of surprise is on the rival gang member's side. So he comes out victorious at the shootout, but still has to eliminate a witness. The piece of this story Father Joseph shares. Next is him calling the ambulance on the assassins, who are rushing to pick him up. But are they the good guys in the story? Wouldn't just letting him die protect dozens of lives? Well, people who say this certainly have a point, but so do folks who disagree. Life, and every argument in it, is like a circle, it has infinite points. But since we can only comprehend the value of something once witnessing that it is not infinite, a circle for us technically has 0 points. And we are constantly trying to make the circle a single point by first turning it into a square. But no matter how hard we try, the circle doesn't become anything remotely close to a square. And pretending it is, in fact, a square will just make everything harder.
The assassin is telling the cop about his day spent in the hospital.
How ironic, that in the building,
Probably in his room.
and maybe even in his bed.
His previous victims were taken care of. There was a chance that during the time he spent there,
And other patient would kill him with no remorse for the misery him and his bosses put either them or their loved ones through. But now the tables have turned. The predator became the prey. While being there, he thought whether or not hunting for Father Joseph was a good decision or not. The foundation behind the questioning was the man calling the ambulance on him.
despite being aware, or at least semi-aware of his attempted murder of him. He had only known this type of true Christian goodness from books until that point,
When God told him the price of a ticket in heaven without him ever asking for it. When he was so deep in his bloodlust,
masked by a search of money, that he didn't even heard it. So, he ignored the hand of God,
reaching for him like that of a lifeguard, and continued drowning in a pool of self-destruction without even noticing that he couldn't breathe.
so, unlike many men and women around him,
He chose to spend his second chance in life doing the same.
mistakes that he did in his first one, the ones that put him there.
The assassin continues his story by mentioning that the hospital told the police about his wound caused by a gunshot, and they arrived to take him to the police station in order to interrogate him. As I am telling this story to you, a lot of people aren't satisfied with the ending, because they wanted the assassin to win in order to prove a point. That being the fact that helping even those who wronged you actually does more harm than good, because it makes bad people believe that no matter what they do, they are entitled to being helped. And they think that if you don't punish the bad, a good life sounds less rewarding and therefore won't be desired so much. But they are the ones who shouldn't worry about that, because only a bad person will see life that way. So they are the ones not getting the punishments deserved. The next event shared by the assassin is escaping the policeman, who was tasked with driving him to the police station. The officer and his partner were attacked previously on that day, which led to the car being damaged and his partner being in the hospital. The other officer thought that he could do the day alone. And, like in many similar tales, the saying about pride going before the fall couldn't be more accurate. The assassin jumps out of the car, trying to escape, and outsmarts the rookie officer in the process by stealing his car, which he forgot to lock in the hurry while trying to catch him. And this wasn't even the worst part of the officer's day. Telling his boss the tale was, the assassin talks about hitting Father Joseph's car with his, after which the man went home, instead of going to the police to give them the briefcase. This had two reasons: that driving a damaged car wasn't safe, and that when people in police cars are out to kill you, maybe avoiding the police station is a good decision.
He is now talking about murdering man, who, like many other players of this cruel game of fate and chance, did nothing to earn his punishment. But is his death completely pointless?
Well, on the first hand, yes, just as every other murder of his story is. But on the other hand, it serves the purpose of setting up a trap for Father Joseph.
Because if there are any witnesses, and there always are, then they will notice the clothing of the murderer,
which completely resembles to that of Father Joseph. So, the police will chase him, instead of the real murderer.
The assassin using the worst enemies of the organization he works for as a pawn, a chess piece of sorts, is an interesting case, and it proves that in their world, there aren't any morals, only power, and enough money to have it.
Father Joseph is now talking ironically to the police about being chased not only by criminals, but by the police too, who are supposed to protect people who can't protect themselves. Like Father Joseph, from people who take advantage of this. Like the assassin. But then, Joseph was an enemy of both the law and crime. A lonely wanderer with nowhere to go and no one to help. You may ask, why did he escape from the police if he is innocent? Well, a police car chasing you is never a good sign. Especially when they shout, you are arrested for murder. And he is a man whose experiences forced him to develop a mentality in which believing that the law can never do wrong is a luxury that people can't afford. Father Joseph talks about the fact that he couldn't use his good old trustworthy car anymore, since the police could have identified him by that, so he needed a new one. He blocked the road in front of a lady, and when she got out of her car to tell him to move, he entered her car. He could drive it because she left the keys inside. He did the same with his car so that the woman wouldn't be lost. Without a vehicle to drive, I could analyze the situation morally. But I have done and will do this dozens of times. And I don't want to be repetitive. What I would like to note, however, is that the assassin had also stolen a car in the story. There is a theory called the bell curve, stating that in every category, the highest and lowest performing ones have something in common, which the ones in the middle don't. For example, a person who loves only himself, and a person who hates himself more than anything both have themselves at the center of their world. Father Joseph is giving the lady back her car, and taking his own back in exchange where it belongs, only to destroy it, comma. It's not that he didn't love the car, but that he has to destroy it due to the reason that he loves it so much. Therefore can't comprehend it being taken away by the police, and being treated as a kind of bringer of Mars laughter, of misery, and of soul-sucking pain, comma. Even the kind of mercy killing he is performing is better than that. At least, his car, his companion, leaves the earth in dignity, comma. It's like an equestrian shooting its broken-legged horse. The car and the lady are similar. In a way, comma. They both are unwillingly stuck in a battle of good and evil. Or of God and the devil even. To be more artistic, so significant yet so pointless with no escape. Father Joseph decides to buy himself a new car. But it will always be just a car. For him, every car, other than of course the one he had to destroy, will always be just a car. But his old vehicle still wasn't dead to him. Because as the saying goes, people, or in this case precious belongings of one, only die when they are forgotten. And if one thing is sure in this world, it's the fact that Father Joseph will never forget his car. Because if he does, not only his love for the car would vanish, but the part of him that loved, loves and will always love the car too. That would resemble suicide. Because the Father Joseph the world knew and, besides a few people, loved. would be gone forever. But the old one had to disappear. Otherwise it would be easier for the police to identify him. And he needed a car. Because in today's world, a lack of a car is like a lack of one's limbs. You are unable to function and influence the world around you unless you possess it. He eventually bought the one that suited him best. But it still wasn't the same car that he lost. Therefore couldn't fill the void in his heart. You might say that his love for his car is bizarre. Morbid even, but it's not the car that's precious to him, but rather his memories with it. Inside it. The next and last event told by the assassin is him facing Father Joseph for the final time. They both were aware that this is their final confrontation. The assassin is chasing his enemy up a hill. While on their way, they see the Hollywood sign. This is a dream shared by billions of kids all around the world. And ironically, the fact that they desire it so much is the reason that most of them will never get it. This can be explained with one of nature's eternal truths. Men are born for games, nothing else. Every child knows that play is nobler than work. We all play different games. For example, MadOut2. The kids, the robbers, the mobsters, and the assassin are playing one in which success is the price. Sort of like Monopoly, but they aren't playing the same version. But the assassin, at the moment he is talking about, is playing a different game with Father Joseph, who also plays a different one most of the time. And for a game to be enjoyed, it needs to have rules. And only while obeying those can you win. Since our characters currently are not playing the Hollywood game, they aren't required to play by the rules. Therefore, they can reach the Hollywood sign with ease. The game they are currently playing is that of battle. The source, the alpha, and the omega of games. The reason it earns these titles is because in fighting, all that matters is who wins and who loses. And this is what all games are about. However, during a fight, there are no boards. No figures, just the raw, unfiltered essence of playing. But let's talk about the fight itself. Father Joseph miraculously won, despite his enemy being 20 years younger and more experienced. But humanity isn't where it currently is due to physical strength. The mammoths and the saber-toothed tigers are the ones famous for that. And yet, our ancestors managed to defeat them with sheer determination. Father Joseph won and could have killed the assassin, but instead let him go, saying, "You wanted to bring death onto me, and now I give you life." The assassin was thinking about how selfish he is. He realized that although he had hurt countless men, women, and children being ready to sacrifice themselves for their loved ones, he only understood the true capacity of human kindness once it was demonstrated on him twice by Father Joseph. The idea that Father Joseph didn't kill him despite him ruining not only any chance he had for a peaceful life, but also his reputation was unheard of in his world, which he needed to leave behind. The assassin is going to the police station to tell them about the activity of the mob, to do the most he can in the fight of law and crime, of God and Satan, of good and evil. You might be wondering, why do I always bring this fight of good and evil thing up if, in the very beginning, I stated that seeing life as this never-ending conflict between good and evil is just a more poetic way of misunderstanding it? Is everything I previously said to you self-contradicting and therefore pointless? This may be your first impression, but it really isn't the case, as I mentioned earlier. We are unable to control the events that happen to us or the outcomes of our reactions. What truly is in our control, however, is the intention behind our actions. Those can be good or evil. The concept of good is easier to comprehend, although it has its fair share of dilemmas. It is trying to help others succeed, even if it does not help or even is directly against us succeeding. Evil, however, is more complicated. We know that intentionally sabotaging something is wrong. But what about simply ignoring it when we could help? In my opinion, true evil is trying to solve your problems with violence, prompting violence in the process, not because you believe in it being helpful, but because everyone wants what they are the best at to be the most important. Good, however, is trying to solve problems with love and promoting love. Because you truly believe that it's what the world needs the most. Every single reaction of a man is one of these two. But there are complex situations in which you need to use violence as a tool for expressing love, or the opposite. The police was coming to Father Joseph's house. He was worried when he saw them first, however. After they explained that the assassin told them the truth, he felt relieved. Previously, he was worried if letting the assassin go was a good decision or not. He was aware that his enemy got clinically injured when falling down during their fight. But still, there was a bit of doubt in his mind. He gave them the money and was taken to the police station afterwards. While on the way, he was thinking, what could the assassin, the woman whose car he stole, and the car dealer be doing right now? They all changed him a little bit, just like every interaction he ever had. In his philosophy, every single interaction is a corrosion of two personalities, in which both of them change the other a little bit. And that always happens, even if they had met millions of times before. We are all trying to express our ideas, our true ideology, but no matter what, others will never see things the way we do. But before Father Joseph could have finished this thought process, they arrived at the police station.
What you are seeing now is the base of the mob, the most despicable people of the world.
The worst kind of animals, who make money by causing others suffering. The way they got this base isn't a moral one either. When they heard from their bribed government officials that the construction is
About to be cancelled due to a lack of money, they used it as a base. However,
when the leaving workers saw one of their illegal deals go on,
they made another deal with them for their silence. However, they didn't pay with money,
but with keeping me alive, to be specific, keeping them alive except one whom they sacrificed, and made the others watch it for the sole purpose of intimidation. You may ask,
why did they choose a lifestyle as risky and dangerous as theirs? Well, it's not that they rejected the opportunity of making money legally, but that for them,
it was never even an opportunity, and they decided that being successful is worth the risk of never feeling safe for them. So remember, kids, that behind every facade of a criminal strong enough not to be controlled by any form of rules is a loser unable to be a functional member of society and not capable of offering anything valuable to the community.
The police are going to the base of the mob in order to arrest them. A man unexperienced in the way of the police may think that for them, this is just another Tuesday. But an expert is aware that although they have done this previously, they treat this mission just like the others, like it will be their last one. Some of them are fighting for justice. Others are just looking for a way of trying to write themselves into the never-ending story of fighting crime, to feel like they matter. But does this matter? Does the end justify the means? In my opinion, no. Because if these people weren't born into the clean and law-abiding part of society, then they would kill, rob, and scam innocents for the same selfish reason of trying to make a name for themselves. Some of you may think their defeat is the only bad outcome of the situation. This couldn't be further from the truth. They can never be sure if the men they are currently fighting against are truly evil or not. Maybe God will twist fate in a way that history won't remember them as brave heroes but as foolish victims of a legal scam, or worse, agents of an evil system that attacks the innocent. But even with all these fears in mind, our two policemen are still ready for the showdown, because they are aware that an action, if large enough, no matter the intentions, has the potential for saving humanity and for dooming it forever beyond repair. This can be either done through the deed itself or by a butterfly effect, which means that an event triggers a bigger one, which triggers an even bigger one. And this process continues until something gigantic happens. But overthinking and believing in concepts like this will just create a depressed world in which nothing has meaning and no one does anything because they are scared of the potential negative consequences. Their wives are at home, wishing they survived the raid, secretly hoping that this will be the day they quit their dangerous job, because they hate thinking about losing their husbands every day, whom they think don't care about their concerns. How ironic that, in their perspective, one of the most selfless jobs is the most selfish. They hate that their kids are looking up to their fathers, wishing to be like them, which effectively means wishing to be in constant danger. But they are blinded by love. Therefore, they don't see that without their partners, the world would be a worse place, even for them. So, dear viewers, with all things considered, think twice if your dream job is being a police officer. One of the policemen is trying to find the leader of the all-powerful mob, while his partner is arresting his crooks. He is searching everywhere and eventually notices the silhouette of a man at the top of one of the buildings. He successfully arrests the mob boss, who realized that through his life, he wasn't getting away with all kinds of troubles due to the reason that God, fate, or whatever higher force favored him over his peers, but merely to set up the punchline of its cruelest joke. Is his arrest going to make the world better? Well, everyone's first guess would be yes, of course. And they are right from a certain perspective. But let's not forget that a major power being eliminated usually results in the previous second to largest powers rivalizing for the now empty spot, resulting in massacres never seen before. The criminal world is a very fragile house of cards, and although in an undoubtedly immoral way, the mob was able to balance off all major powers. However, their absence may be the first step of a domino effect, resulting in chaos larger than ever. The mob boss is watching the view outside. He has always considered nature to be beautiful, even since he was a child. He never understood how humans can consider work and productivity to be what truly matters when they are witnessing wonders every day. His parents always told him that he needs to learn how to manage time and do things even when he doesn't want to, because they won't always be there for him. And that scared him the most about work and normal adult life, that essentially all humans are alone, and that no matter how strong a connection is, you are incapable of saving someone from hardships. The civil shot previously had a couple of comatose days, woke up, and now is leaving the hospital. He is thinking about attacking Father Joseph, whose previously mentioned thought process regarding humans not being able to completely understand each other is very fitting in this situation. His wanting to get revenge is based on a lack of information, so I would like to continue the previous thought process with new ideas. Before being processed, all ideas are shaped by the explainer's ability to express them, and the receiver's ability to understand them. And that's beautiful, but can also lead to misunderstandings. Like this one. When listening to this, you may be wondering, how the hell can this narrator guy talk about men driving cars so much? Well, there are two kinds of people to whom a Greek tragedy is no different than driving a car, and those who see the hidden Greek tragedy in driving a car. You may also ask, why didn't the police tell him the true identity of his killer? Well, at the time of the interrogations, he was still in a coma, and now they are calling him. But he is driving and so deep in his bloodlust that he ignores any voice. He had heard countless urban legends about his shooter and his old car, so he knew in which part of the city he should search for him. Father Joseph enters the local shopping center and does a great shopping session for hours. When he gets out, he is hit by the car of the civilian shot previously by the assassin, who still thought Father Joseph was behind the attack. He told everyone, including himself, that the murder will be done to keep himself and his family out of danger. But actually, he enjoys it. It is the first time he truly feels alive. He is becoming what he and all of mankind was destined to become from birth a predator hunting its prey. Like all of us, he desired to matter in the great scale of things. And what better way to do that than deciding if another man shall live or not? How symbolic that in the moment of his death, darkness is suddenly falling. Like his presence was filling the universe with light. Which was true. In a way, Father Joseph dies for the same reasons Jesus did on the cross centuries ago, for the sins of the people surrounding him. And although revenge is fulfilled, the truth is lost forever.